Hi, y'all. It's Heron, and I have been having an absolutely crazy month. It's Pride Month. I did my first two art boots. They were a lot of work. And I'm starting a new job, so that's been a lot of work and training. You might have noticed from the background stuff that there's a lot going on here right now. But the good news is that I'm working on some really fun stuff for next month, so stay tuned. But for this week, I thought I'd just do a nice, low-key, relaxing talking video again. So, the conversational topic today is creativity and how we can get into a creative mindset. Have you ever looked at a piece of artwork and thought, how on earth did that person come up with this concept? I can't even begin to wrap my head around what led you to that thought. It's so creative. And it seems like certain artists, certain creators are just full of non-stop creative ideas. But what if I told you that it's not an innate talent, but rather creativity is a muscle that we can learn how to use more efficiently and how to work out to improve? One of the most profoundly beneficial educational experiences of my life was when I studied advertising. My grandmother used to work in marketing, and she got very excited when I told her I wanted to study advertising in college, so she introduced me to a creative director who I got to shadow for the day, and I got to read all of these old textbooks that she had. I did take a few formal classes for one semester at VCU, and I really just had a lot of fun with it because traditional marketing and advertising is a really fun topic. Now, modern day marketing advertising, maybe not quite as much. It's very data driven. But up until recently, advertising was this sort of explosive creative skill. Right? People were competing to see who had the most creative, interesting, eye-catching advertisements, commercials. We have unfortunately since found that that doesn't translate to a monetary value, but there was this sort of golden age of advertising during which I guess we convinced companies that it was, right? And so artists just got to go crazy for a few decades here. So during this advertising class at VCU, we really just got to spend all day brainstorming ideas. We played word association games, we did little doodles, and I think that that has now translated today more toward content creation. What I'm doing, making this video. And so content creators, which I think a lot of artists complain about, we're expected to put out all of these, creative new ideas, be our own advertising marketing staff 24/7. And a lot of people don't like this. I actually kind of am enjoying it. But it really does tap into that well, and it really does require you to come up with new ideas over and over and over again every single week. So how do we do it? And especially people who are in the situation like I am, where I'm working another job, I have a lot of stuff going on. How do I keep coming up with these creative ideas? The most important thing that you can do to be more creative, in my opinion, is to take more notes. And that is because a lot of the work of creativity is not being done by our conscious mind, it's being done by our subconscious. So when you're asleep, when you're in the shower, your subconscious is constantly making new connections between different things. And so your job as a creative is not to come up with the idea so much as to catch it right before it floats away. And the best way that you can possibly do that is always be taking notes. Have a note-taking device on your computer, on your phone, maybe a physical one, on your person, at all times. Always, always, always be taking notes. I have so many note documents full of hundreds and thousands of random different creative ideas that I've generated over the past, year or two, and most of them will never see the light of day. But if you get into the habit of writing it all down, eventually you will write down something really good just passively without even meaning to. So not only do I have hundreds and thousands of notes that I've taken over the years that will never see the light of day, I actually have a lot of projects that I've never shared with you before. Some finished, some unfinished. I've written 2 full-length novels, guys. And this really bothers people sometimes, because people will say, oh my goodness, no, you need to finish one project before you start the next. This is so, irresponsible. It's a waste of time. But the truth is, this is essential to the creative process, and I'll tell you why. You might think of the creative process as cooking a meal, right? You look up a recipe, maybe you make a few little edits to it, you start mixing things together, you taste it, you add something more until you have this nice tasting meal, and then you eat it. But for the creative process, for things like making videos and making, visual art, things that are going to last a lifetime, it's much more comparable to writing the actual recipe. You wouldn't go through random things in your kitchen and shove them all together and stick it in the oven and call it a recipe, right? You would probably try many different iterations of food over the course of a few weeks, months, or even years before you decided this is my original recipe that I feel is good enough to put in a recipe book. And that's the thing, the creative process is very iterative. It takes a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation. Creativity is a numbers game. And so when I was taking that advertising class, we would spend all day brainstorming, we would write down dozens and hundreds of ideas, and then at the end of the class, we would circle our best idea. And so the teacher would come around, and he would see the idea that we circled, and guess what he did? Cross it out. He would cross it out right in front of us, and he would say, you can do better. This is very emotionally difficult. It is one of the hardest parts of getting into art, and it's something the creative industry likes to call kill your darlings. So if you come up with an idea that took you a long, long time to come up with, if you've been working on this project, it's very, very important to you, but it's not really coming out quite right, it takes a lot of emotional strength and resilience to be able to cross it out, but that's what it takes. That is what is so essential to the creative process, is you have to be willing to iterate more and more and more. You have to keep pushing yourself to come up with that great creative idea. This is the complete opposite of how almost all other types of work function. This is the complete opposite of working in an office. If you come up with one idea and you do the entire project start to finish and you create a piece, then you have good work ethic, good follow through. If you come up with 1,000 ideas and you start about 50 of them and you finish 20 of them and you only put one in a gallery, then you have a masterpiece. So this is the taxing half of the equation, right? This is not always fun. It can lead to a lot of perfectionism. It can lead to a lot of frustration and anguish when you need to scrap something that you've spent maybe 100 hours working on. And it feels so pointless, so hopeless, that it can lead to perfectionism. It can lead to burnout. And so that is where the second half of this comes in, that is so, so crucial to the creative process. And that second half is rediscovering a sense of childlike joy and awe and wonder at the world around you. Joy will radically transform the way that you think of your life, the way that you approach the world. Because every single one of us, right, we always have this list in our head of, oh, there's all these things I should be doing right now. I should be doing laundry. I should be doing taxes. I guess tax season is over right now. All these things we should be doing. And then as you're going through the list in your head, maybe you glance out the window and you say, wow, it's a beautiful day outside. I don't want to be doing this. I want to take a walk. The childlike joy, the impulsive behavior that you need for that creative process is to say yes to that. Is to say, yes, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to take a walk and it's going to rejuvenate me and it's going to make me feel connected to the world around me again. Right? So you go outside and you take that walk, and as you're taking the walk, you are on the sidewalk. There's sort of a low-hanging branch, and there's this leaf that is just sort of floating right in your face. The responsible, mature adult thing to do, right? You think, okay, I should walk around the leaf. But maybe your inner child today is saying, that looks like a really cool leaf, I want to touch it. And so the impulsive thing that I want you to do when you see that leaf is reach out and touch it. So as you reach out, you touch this leaf and you start to observe it. What sort of texture does it have? What sort of color and shape? Maybe it has this really cool sort of veiny pattern running across it. And maybe at this point you will start thinking, I want to draw the leaf. Okay, this is a beautiful leaf, I want to draw it. But if you push your creative mind a little further, you may start making other connections. So maybe you're working on a logo design and it has a similar shape to the leaf and you can find a way to incorporate it, right? Maybe you think of some cool sort of hybrid creature like a humanoid, because the leaf pattern looks sort of almost like a spine, like a nervous system. You know, there are a lot of different ways that your brain could connect this cool impulsive interest to other things you're working on. And if you have a note-taking document with you, you can write it all down. Of course, if you're intentionally trying to develop some sort of hybrid creature design, you might not want to wait for your brain to make the connections for you at a random time. But this is where those brainstorming activities come into play. So if you've noticed, my logo is my adorable little strawberry squid cartoon. I came up with that intentionally through brainstorming. I decided that I needed a cute little guy to sort of represent my brand, something whimsical and fun and cute. And so I made two lists. One list with a bunch of cute little creatures that had sort of interesting shapes, and one list of popular fruits. And I just started drawing lines in between the two lists to connect them. And then I started trying to visualize them, sort of sketch them out, which one looks most appealing. And I decided to go with initially sort of the strawberry squid and maybe one or two other things. And then I filled a few pages with little sketches of how they might actually look. And then I took one of these sketches and I brought it into Photoshop and I digitally drew over it over and over and over again and tweaked it back and forth until I eventually came to the design that I have now. This process took multiple days. So it may look like a simple design, but it actually took many, many iterations and meant much trial and error to get it just right. But that, again, is the process. So art isn't just a creative process. It's not just chaos. Some of it is control. And we go back and forth between these two different modes as creatives to get the effect that we desire. So what I'd like for you to work on this week is try to figure out which one you need more of in your creative process to get those ideas flowing. Are you somebody who's been working in a stuffy office building and you need to reach out to your inner child? Maybe take a trip to the dollar store and go through the craft section and look for things that seem interesting. Are you somebody who has way too many craft supplies hoarded up by now and you need to actually put your project into effect? Then maybe what you need to do is start making lists, right? Start writing things down, maybe make a schedule on your calendar, say 30 minutes a day or an hour a week to work on this project until it's done. But either way, I suspect you will benefit greatly from writing down notes everywhere you go. Always, always, always be taking notes. Anyway, I hope you learned something fun from this video. I hope you took something useful away from it. As always, take care, y'all. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.